A few days ago, I was playing Dungeons and Dragons with my cousin. I swear this ties into Deep Rock Galactic. We were playing the Tomb of Annihilation campaign, which is pretty popular and you'll likely know of it if you know D&D. Anyway, since this campaign takes place in a dense jungle, you, the characters, need a guide, and there are plenty to choose from. Our group settled on this one dwarf guide named Musharib. After traveling with this guide for a bit and learning that he used to work in the mountains some time ago, it reminded me of something. It reminded me of how much I love dwarves. Just look at them. They are muscular, have awesome beards, and they work in the deadliest of mines. They are the definition of short kings. They get drunk 24/7 from consuming ungodly amounts of beer or ale, yet they also manage to still pull off their tasks perfectly. They carry pickaxes that are probably double their own body weight, or they carry drills depending on how you like your dwarves. Because they can literally fit into any setting. Fantasy? Sure, make them the best of the best at mining and forging. Sci-fi? The same thing works here. Dark fantasy? Still works. So my love of dwarves first of all made me regret not making my character a cool dwarf, but instead a religious half-orc cleric who has, through training, suppressed their inner anger. And it also put me in a search of dwarf-related games. And besides the obvious Dwarf Fortress, a game so dwarf it has dwarf in the title, I could only think of one other game. Ah yes, Deep Rock Galactic, also known as Rockin' Stone. I had first played Deep Rock some time ago, and by some time ago I mean all the way back in quarantine, and I really loved it. However, once all my friends quit playing the game, I also quit because I didn't want to play with randoms. However, after my YouTube recommendations were filled with Deep Rock Galactic videos a few days ago, right after the D&D campaign, I took it as some sort of divine intervention or God giving me a sign and decided to buy a 1-month subscription of Xbox Game Pass.
Whoa, Xbox, record that.
Then I discovered that I had never even cancelled my previous Game Pass subscription and that I was paying for it for over 2 months without playing anything, so yeah, that was nice. After discovering that, I downloaded Deep Rock and began playing. So, what is Deep Rock Galactic? Deep Rock Galactic is a game where you work for a dwarven mining company that doesn't care about you, so essentially every single company ever. The only difference between this mining company and Amazon is that instead of refusing to let their employees go to the toilet, they send their employees down to an extremely unstable planet, I don't even know how this cluster can be called a planet, to fight giant spiders and antlions. While also tasking the dwarves with mining materials that will probably cause them all sorts of cancer in the next 10 years, provided that they don't die from the spiders or the most dangerous enemy of all, themselves. Since the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't an animal or a man that has nothing to lose, it is a dwarf with a grappling hook that cannot grasp the concept of fall damage. But before we get to all that, there is something every new or returning player like me does. And that is running around the hub for 20 minutes before deciding to start a mission. The hub, or the space station, is where you will return to after each mission, and I assure you, you will spend a lot of time here since this ain't your mama's hub. Besides the obvious terminals, there are a lot of games and interesting things in the hub. Just by exploring the hub, you can see how much love has been put into this game. You can drink until you knock yourself out.
I have definitely not had enough.
You can play some tunes on the jukebox. I just learned about this, by the way, when I was just walking around the hub for this video and I just stumbled upon the jukebox. Right behind the jukebox, we have a game that is more fun than the mining part of the game itself. Great basketball. I spend almost all of my time in the hub here, just doing this, and if you decide to jump off the platform and go underneath the bar, you can find... Is that a disco ball? Is that a technological goalpost? No way. Yes, you can actually play football here. The last thing I've managed to discover as of now is something my friend actually discovered when we played all the way back in quarantine. If you go up here, you can recalibrate the gravity of the space station, which obviously makes you just fly into the air. Yes, it is indeed hot today. I've said all of this and I still haven't talked about what the hub actually offers besides Easter eggs. Well, everything you'll ever need is here. Choosing weapons, choosing missions, choosing clothing, and the assignment board. This board is where I learned I was only halfway through the first quest of the game. This isn't it, however, because a lot more things are unlocked when you finally manage to promote your character, which I haven't done yet because you need to get to level 20 on a single class. The single most important thing in the hub is being able to customize and see classes though. We have the Scout, an agile yet drunk dwarf that can use grappling hooks. You know the classic saying of, adding a grappling hook into a game makes it automatically better. And yes, it is true here. Besides the grappling hook, the Scout also has the one, the only, sawed-off double-barrel shotgun. Think of the scout in Deep Rock as the Doomslayer. The gunner. This is a class that, as its name implies, guns. The gunner uses a minigun and a futuristic looking pistol that carries the force of 20 elephants. The gunner's special ability is the zipline, being able to set up a zipline anywhere that allows people to go up. Hurry up, man! The engineer. If you actually want to be a benefit to your team and not fuck around using the ziplines or the grappling hooks, the engineer is one of the two classes you pick, carrying one of the coolest base weapons of the game, the combat shotgun, as his primary, and a goddamn grenade launcher that I've fired in closed tunnels god knows how many times, because remember, the biggest threat is yourself. Alongside this, the reason the engineer actually supports the team is because he can build platforms and turrets. The driller. Geez, I wonder what this class does, it's a mystery! The driller burns the heretics in holy fire and drills. Now that I'm probably a few minutes into this video, I think it's about time I got to my first mission. Dropping into an ongoing mission, I quickly realized that I had forgotten everything about the game and spent a few minutes trying to relearn everything while fighting off spiders. After that, I realized that this was my first time playing a mission like this. Here, in this mission, you have to escort a machine called the Drill Dozer, and then protect it when it begins mining into this thing called an Omoran Heartstone. This was my first time playing with randoms, which didn't help the fact that I was actively making the mission longer by not realizing how refueling worked, but eventually I got it and was rewarded with a horde. Or I remembered how good the music of this game really is. Seriously, the soundtrack is amazing and it definitely hyped me up when we were protecting the drill during the last event. This was my first mission after returning to the game and it was fun. Incredibly fun. But this is only one of the mission types out of 9. Yes, I'm counting deep dives as a mission type. And if we count the possible primary and secondary objectives, well, my math isn't that great to say the least, but if we combine the possible primary and secondary objectives and the possible maps, we end up with a number above infinity because the map of every mission is randomly generated. Let me run you through the primary objectives of these missions. Escort duty. You have to escort this little cutie named Doretta to a Heartstone. Oh, who's a good drill? In this mission, you have to ensure nothing bad happens to Doretta, like getting hit by literal magical meteorites. About halfway through the mission, Doretta will run out of fuel, and the Rock and Stone crew will have to refuel it, because remember, this company does not care about you. You are replaceable. Once you finish the mission, Doretta will die. Shakespeare wishes he could have written a tragedy like this one. On-site refining. This mission tasks the Dwarven crew with building pipelines that connect to the central refinery. This central refinery is your base throughout the mission and you have to protect it from the bugs. The dwarves have to build 3 different pipelines that connect to 3 different liquid morkite sites or pump jacks. By dwarves, I mean the other 3 members of your team, because one person has to stay behind and do the fun part of the job, which is guarding the refinery. And that job sure as hell isn't going to those randoms. Egg hunt. You have to hunt alien eggs that are hidden within the fleshy nests of these monstrous bugs. And once you collect an egg, a lot of monsters will spawn. They seek to protect their young from the hands of capitalism. Well, nobody is safe in this world, so pay up with your lives, you spider-looking assholes. The dwarves will then have to deliver the eggs to this gonk droid-looking thing called the mule, which, by the way, accompanies you in almost all of the missions because you put the ores you've found besides the main objective or the things that secondary objective has tasked you to find into it. I've not mentioned it before because it wasn't that relevant, but it is now. Mining expedition. The simplest mission of them all. For your primary objective, you have to just mine and fight off bugs, and wait, this is Minecraft. Ah, there we go. The dwarf team has to collect a lot of ore called morkite, with its amount increasing depending on the mission length. Then the dwarves will have to deposit the ores into the mule. Salvage operation. In this mission, you have to find and repair 2 to 3 mini mules. Don't ask why they are here. Do not question mission command. These are not the mules of dead men. To repair these mules, you will need to find all of their legs and just bring them back to the robot. Once you repair all of them, you can head to your main mule to call the pod to escape. Point extraction. This mission is nearly the same as the egg hunt mission with some minor differences. Instead of eggs, the dwarves have to collect this blue material called aquark. Then you have to take them to a mining platform instead of a mobile mule. The amount of aquark you have to collect depends on the length of the mission. Elimination. Do you dislike bugs? Or perhaps, do you dislike arachnids? Do you dislike spiders? If you said yes, first of all, what is wrong with you? Secondly, elimination is the mission for you. You need to find cocoons and destroy them to release the average Australian.
This is what you'd have for breakfast, you fucking dog. A fucking VB long neck.
Then you have to kill the Australian before they can keep huntsman spiders as pets. Industrial sabotage. So it turns out Deep Rock Galactic isn't the only mining company that doesn't let employees go on strike. This mission requires you to sabotage the other company's AI, and by sabotage you need to shoot it. However, there is one problem. The main boss is being guarded by a force field, so you will have to go to 2 power stations and hack them in order to disable the force field. Then you shoot it and it dies. Finally, deep dives. I unfortunately haven't played this game mode yet, but apparently it's a game mode where you play 3 missions back to back without your health or ammo resetting. That's just insane, and that's all I can say until I make another video on deep dives. Now those who haven't played Deep Rock Galactic might be thinking, only 8 main missions? That's a small amount of missions for a game that has been praised this much, isn't it? Well, yes, but remember what I said before. Secondary objectives, maps and mutators/anomalies make the game infinitely replayable. Secondary objectives are just collect blank missions. You don't need to finish them in order to complete the mission, but it's better if you complete them, and most lobbies don't call the escape pod until they are completed anyways. The game could task you with something like collecting fossils, mushrooms, seeds, and you get it. Maps in Deep Rock Galactic do more than just alter the appearance of a stage. Besides the fact that they are always randomly generated except in deep dive missions, some biomes also include added dangers such as snowstorms, lava, exploding mushrooms, poison releasing mushrooms, and sandstorms. The biomes themselves are also really interesting and well designed. None of them feel like a copy of one another, and the procedural generation system changes from biome to biome. The biome, Dense Biozone, has more closed and claustrophobic caverns, while biomes like Sandblasted Corridors have more open and vertical caverns. The last thing about the biomes are their resources. In Deep Rock there are these things called crafting materials. These are the materials that go into your inventory instead of getting converted to XP or money if you got some during a mission. As to how these relate to biomes, well, the game went the Astroneer route and made it so not every crafting material can be found in every biome. For example, you can find Enerpearls in the salt pits, but you can't find them in the fungus bogs. Finally, the mutators/anomalies. I'll start with the mutators, which are events that are always negative, but the thing is they always give a bonus called a hazard bonus. The hazard bonus increases the rewards you get from a mission by a certain percentage that is determined by how much time it takes to handle that mutator and how dangerous it is. So mutators that barely affect the gameplay, like Exploder Infestation, which just increases the number of exploding spiders, only gives a 20% increase. Meanwhile, a Lithophage Infection, which is a mutator you'll have to actively go out of your way to combat, gives 50%. By the way, I just have to say that the Lithophage Infection is extremely cool, and it isn't as annoying as that. You have to use foam to cover it, then suck it up using a vacuum. It also fits into my favorite monster cliche, that being monsters that actively transform the environment into their own biohabitats. The next season will also improve the Lithophage infection by increasing its danger, adding Lithophage infected spiders and walking Lithophage clusters. On the opposite side are the anomalies, which are always positive or just neutral. For example, while mutators make it harder for you to complete a mission, anomalies do things like increasing the damage dealt to an enemy when you hit its weak spot. The reason I said just neutral is because of 2 anomalies. 1. Rich atmosphere, which makes it so that both dwarves and aliens run faster, while also altering the voice of dwarves as if they've had too much of the tasty treat known as helium. And volatile guts, which makes every bug spontaneously combust upon death. Those are all I currently have to say about Deep Rock Galactic. This game is truly fantastic and I'm so glad I gave it another chance. If you haven't played Deep Rock, you definitely should. It's free on Game Pass and Game Pass is pretty cheap even if you live in a country in an economic crisis like me. Also, they don't vault items like Destiny 2 despite it being a live service game. They just add it to the next season's loot pool so the developers know exactly what their players want. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate if you could subscribe. Goodbye and hopefully see you.